Welcome to Mind Minutes, tackling those little mental hiccups that shape your day. Today, we're diving into a sticky situation, the blurry line between care and control in relationships.
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one. Where do you draw the line?
Exactly. This whole conversation started with a friend venting about her boyfriend refusing to go to the hospital, even with chest pains. He felt she was trying to control him, which, to be fair, she was trying to get him to take action regarding his health.
I can see both sides, honestly. Concern can definitely feel like control sometimes.
Absolutely. The article points out how control and love can be mixed up, sometimes with darker consequences like PUA.
PUR? That's unsettling. It highlights how important it is to be able to tell the difference, right?
Right. The piece argues that it's tricky because love and control aren't mutually exclusive. Even in healthy relationships, there's some element of control. Think about a partner trying to get you to sleep more or eat better. It comes from care, but it is influencing behavior. Hmm.
It's that for your own good argument. Sometimes it is for our own good, but it still feels icky.
He is a good word for it, especially if it's constant. It also talks about how our childhood experiences with parental control shape how we view control in adult relationships.
Oh, makes sense. Like if you had overly controlling parents, you might be more sensitive to it in a partner?
Precisely. They use Diana Baumrine's parenting styles, authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and uninvolved, to illustrate how different levels of control and responsiveness play out.
I'm familiar with those. So, authoritative parenting, which is considered the most effective, still involves a degree of control, right? But it's paired with high responsiveness to the child's needs.
Exactly. It's about setting boundaries and having expectations, but also being warm and understanding. It's that balance that helps kids thrive. The other styles, whether too controlling or too lenient, can leave kids ill-equipped for navigating adult relationships. Hmm.
So, how does this translate to adult relationships? Like with the boyfriend refusing to go to the hospital, was the girlfriend wrong to push?
It's complicated. The article makes a distinction between mental control, which is manipulative and harmful, and behavioral control, which is more about setting boundaries.
Hmm. Behavioral control. So, like asking your partner to help with chores more would fall under that?
Potentially, yes. As long as it's a reasonable request within a healthy dynamic and not, say, an attempt to manipulate or dominate. It's a nuanced thing, isn't it? Nuance is the key word here. It's all about context, communication, and respect. We need to be aware of how we're trying to influence someone's behavior and whether it's coming from a place of genuine care or a need to control.
And also recognizing when we're the ones being controlled, right? And setting those boundaries for ourselves.
Absolutely. And that's what makes adult relationships so complex, right? We're responsible for ourselves, but we also care about the people in our lives and want to see them thrive. It's a constant negotiation, really, figuring out where that line is between healthy care and unhealthy control.
It definitely is. Food for thought for sure. Thanks for breaking that down. It's helpful to have these kinds of conversations to help us navigate those murky waters.
So, picking up on that behavioral control idea, it's fascinating how easily that can become a slippery slope, isn't it? Like, where do you draw the line between a reasonable request and, low-key manipulation?
Totally. And the article touches on how our upbringing plays a huge role in how we perceive control, right? Those bomb-rind parenting styles talk about a blast from Psych 101.
Right. Authoritative, authoritarian.
Hmm.
It's like a parenting style alphabet soup. But seriously, they make a good point about how those early experiences shape our adult relationships. If you grew up with a super strict authoritarian parent, even a small request from a partner might feel controlling. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it's like your internal alarm bells go off, whereas someone who grew up with more permissive parents might not even register it.
Precisely. And the article even cites studies like Barber, Gia, Olson, and others in 2012 on psychological control. Really gets into how damaging that can be. It's not just about setting boundaries, it's about
Undermining someone's autonomy, right? Making them doubt themselves, their decisions.
exactly. It can be so insidious because often it's disguised as care. I'm just looking out for you, kind of thing.
Ugh, I know, right? So manipulative. It's that classic gaslighting scenario where you start questioning your own sanity. This is heavy stuff.
It is, but it's important to talk about because recognizing those patterns is the first step to breaking free from them, whether you're on the receiving end or, and this is important too, realizing you might be exhibiting those behaviors yourself. Hmm.
Oh, for sure. Self-awareness is key. We've all got our baggage, right? And our own ingrained patterns from childhood. It's about being mindful of how that baggage might be affecting our current relationships.
Absolutely. And like Baumrine's work in 71 and 78 highlights, those patterns often start early. So much of this stuff stems from how we were raised and the dynamics we witnessed growing up. Like, if one parent was always controlling the other, you might subconsciously replicate that behavior in your own relationships, thinking it's normal.
So true. It's like a cycle, almost. But the good news is cycles can be broken with awareness and effort and maybe a little therapy sprinkled in.
Totally. And open communication is crucial, right? Being able to talk to your partner honestly about how certain behaviors make you feel without blame or defensiveness. It's about creating a safe space for vulnerability, which admittedly can be easier said than done.
So much easier said than done, but essential nonetheless, because without that open dialogue, those little control issues can fester and grow into much bigger problems down the line. Food for thought, for sure.
So we're talking about control in relationships, and this research on compulsive caregiving adds another layer, doesn't it? This idea of emotional parentification.
Yeah, where kids end up taking on parental roles, emotionally supporting their parents. That's gotta mess with your sense of boundaries later on, right?
Exactly. The study from the University of Virginia looks at how emotional parentification during childhood can impact romantic relationships in young adulthood. It really digs into how those early caregiving experiences can affect everything from attachment styles to communication patterns.
Makes sense. Like, if you're constantly worried about your parents' emotional well being as a kid, you might carry that hypervigilance into your romantic relationships.
Totally. You're always on high alert, anticipating needs, trying to fix things, even when it's not your responsibility. And the study found a link between this compulsive caregiving and difficulties establishing healthy boundaries in romantic relationships later on. Hmm.
So, those early experiences can set the stage for codependent relationships, maybe, where you prioritize your partner's needs above your own.
Oh, absolutely. And the research delves into how it affects things like conflict resolution, too. Like, if you learn to suppress your own needs as a child to keep the peace, you might struggle to assert yourself in adult relationships.
Which can lead to resentment, frustration, all sorts of unhealthy dynamics.
Exactly. It's like a ripple effect. These early family dynamics influence how we communicate, how we handle conflict, how we attach to others, and the study highlights how crucial it is to address these patterns because they can have a real impact on our ability to form healthy, fulfilling relationships.
So, what's the takeaway here? Like, how do you break the cycle if you recognize yourself in these patterns? Therapy?
Therapy is definitely an option. It can provide a safe space to unpack those early experiences and develop healthier coping mechanisms. And self awareness is huge, right? Recognizing those ingrained patterns, understanding where they come from, is the first step to changing them. Hmm.
Right, right. It's about unlearning those old habits and learning new, healthier ways of relating others. Heavy stuff, but important to talk about.
It is heavy, but it also offers a lot of hope. Because once you understand these patterns, you can start to rewrite the script. You can learn to set boundaries, to prioritize your own well being, to build relationships that are truly reciprocal and fulfilling.
Food for thought, for sure. Thanks for shedding light on this. It's a conversation we need to be having more often. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning into Mind Minutes. Take care, everyone.